Welcome back to my brand new improved podcast, which is called All of the Above. It was born from a realization that real life isn't categorized. We are not just one thing, we are layered, unpolished, living in that messy middle and learning as we go. We're ambitious and exhausted, confident and still figuring it out. Serious about growth, but we're deeply human as well. And that's exactly what this space is. That is what it is becoming. With all of the above, I'm opening the door wide open. New topics, new voices, and new conversations. We'll talk about purpose, identity, relationships, mental health, business, self-worth, and of course, failure and success, and everything in between. Bringing people from different walks of life with different perspectives and different stories. Not just the highlight reels, but the real honest behind the scenes. Because meaningful conversations don't happen when we limit ourselves. They happen when we allow all of it to exist. Okay, so I am getting straight down into it. And in this first episode, I'm going in the deep end. I'm not going to lie, because I'm going to be talking about my single girl era. I haven't shared much of this on my socials because this is where the magic happens in the podcast. I'm going to bring you along my journey, and is a hell of a journey. I'm going to be talking about dating, dramas and dilemmas. And oh boy, have I had some. How I navigated the dating apps and even dating in general, because I was never really single. From the age of 17 to 37, I've been in relationships. And being single for the last 2 years until recently, God, have I learned so much about myself. Because I really feel that I needed that time to rediscover who I was. I was taking that time to figure myself out. I was at a place where I thought I knew myself, but I really didn't know myself at all. So basically, I had to take this time to figure out who I was. And the last 2 years was all about rediscovering myself, to be content in my own company, because the difference between loneliness and being alone, they're two different things. And sometimes I felt that when I was even in a relationship. Then, also going solo traveling, highly recommend, by the way. I went for 3 months last year and it was the best thing I ever did for myself. I'm not saying you need to jump on a plane and leave everything behind, but I do think even a break away for the night is such a rewarding thing, and I learned so much about myself. I had to learn to be my own best friend, which was a huge thing, because I would have been one person that I always wanted someone else there to do things with me or to validate me. But no, I've definitely learned that as well. And not to rely on people. You need the courage to do things yourself. I validated my own self instead of looking outside. And if I wasn't feeling my best self, even when the time I got stood up, by the way, we're going to unpack that and get down into it. I will get there. Don't you worry. So today I am going to give you insight into my world, the world of dating, how I navigate it, and how I navigated being single. At the time when I labeled myself being single, it actually kind of gave me the ick. I think it gave me the ick because I didn't know what it was like to truly be alone. I need to mute that. Bear with me. Truly be alone. And there's going to be a few hot takes in here. I want you to walk away with tips, with tricks, with mindset shifts to know that you're not alone. Whether you're in a relationship, whether you're on your own, whether you're embracing singlehood, it's so important. So I'm going to unpack it all for you now. So let's dive right in. Right. I want to just set the tone here for you now. Okay. And why dating feels so confusing right now, okay? I'm going to call it the trenches. I'm going to call it the Hunger Games, because it's kind of like every woman or every man for themselves. You're out there, no one knows what they want. They're clear, they're unclear, they want options. It's just a minefield, I'm not going to lie. The ghosting, first of all, the levels of choice, the confusion, it's just not what it used to be. Like, I remember my first boyfriend, my long-term boyfriend, I was 18, I worked in Tesco, and she said to me, Emma, I think you'd like my brother. I was like, okay, set up on a blind date, girls. And I was with him for 5 years. Like, that was the generation we were living in. There was no phones. I know I'm showing my age now, but that's how we were living at the time. And I went with it. Even from that as well, I think we're in this era of the nonchalant that obviously I'm a firm believer of women and men are equal. But it's nice to get treated by a man. It's nice to sit back and have a man look after you in a way, because we look after them. So I do think we're in that generation of nonchalant, and you're lucky if they even open a door. Do you know? But like, come here, I'm not setting the bar here, but it's nice to be nice. You could look on TikTok and be like, is it bare minimum or princess treatment? I think it's the bare minimum, gals. Then, of course, I'd say I'm going to dive into speaking about my single girl experience, okay? And a big thing that I have acknowledged, especially on my Motivational Mondays, which I do, I'd say every fortnight over on my socials, which is at Emma Kyo, give me a follow. Basically, talking, like the scenarios actually I'm going to say was, I'm going to read them out for you now because I have them on my laptop. One of them was been talking to a guy for months and one date and nothing serious. Okay. I was like, what the hell? How can you date someone for a few months in your head and you're talking to them, or you have a label and you've only been out on one date? I'm just like, no. But we're going to dive in why, okay? The second one was going with the flow. What is the flow? I've had this before. I'm going to dive into it. But what is the flow? You need clarity. You can go with it. Is there a time frame? But you do need to be clear on what the flow is. Then also, what else did we have here? Remembering everyone's single journey is different, okay? There is no manual in dating. That's something that I really talked about, had a chat with myself, because I kept looking at things on like TikTok, on Instagram, what other people were saying, and I was going off what my life was supposed to look like. No one's life is linear, and that's in dating, that's overall, but there is no manual in life, and you're the author of your own book. So every chapter is going to be different. Don't go by what everyone else is doing. And then there's no timelines. One size does not fit all. That's the thing. You have to have the up, the down, the ugly, the middle, the messy middle. You do need to navigate through it as well. And of course, there's going to be times of uncertainty, gals. I'm not going to lie. The big thing around this is, which I have here, is around when you're dating, the level of uncertainty about love or wanting to be loved. Will that happen again? And I did ask myself that, am I worthy of love? Do I even love myself, should I say? Like, what point was I at? Then being hopeful and giving yourself time. You do need faith, but at the same time, you can be disheartened. And then you get tired. You honestly get tired from dating. I'm not going to lie. And you have to be very wary about when you're giving your time and your energy and how you're showing up. I'm a firm believer as well that when you pour into yourself, like, you know, you're looking after your health, your job, you're going out with your girls, your lads, you're having fun, you're traveling, you're doing all the good things that are going to fill you up. You are the best version of yourself because you're pouring all that into you. So then you're at a baseline when someone can come in and meet you because you are feeling your best self. Where I've been in times where I wasn't feeling my best self, went out on dates and I'm like, what the hell was that? Because it was just for the sake of it. We do feel lonely sometimes, and I'll admit that. You know, I did go through phases of that, but I knew I had to do more work on myself. Then from that also, it's understanding, you know, that you are enough. I was at a place where I actually didn't feel enough. I think from previous relationships as well, was I got cheated on while I had a house, and I thought I was going to have a baby, moving to the next step. And then there was a point was I started to ask myself, am I enough? What's going on here? But I had to really learn to validate all those things within myself. I think that's what one of the main things that I'm going to unpack today is about, how you can really hone in on your boundaries, hone in on your self-worth, your self-trust, and really forming a foundation for what you can go off, what you can grow off. And when someone comes in as well, you already have that for yourself, and it's so important to do that. And that's definitely one big thing that I learned over the last 2 years, giving back to myself, that I am enough, I am worthy of love. But how did I get there? I got there from train wreck dates, from good dates as well, from giving myself time, and from experiences. I'm going to unpack all the modern dating landscape now by going through which dating apps I was on, what dates I went on, where, like, you know, I met people, how I gave myself that time, because these were all experiences that shaped me, because you grow through what you go through. And I think dating is a really fun time to embrace, not only getting to know yourself, but getting to know other people. It doesn't have to be a label. It doesn't have to have an expectation. It's just about putting yourself out there and rediscovering who you are, what you want, have fun. I think a lot of us are, even me, at the time, you can date to have fun, you can date to get to know someone, but you need to date with intention. If you want to find someone, you need to give that attention back to yourself first. And then when you're going out, if you don't feel the vibe, if it's not, you know, aligning with your gut, it's not for you. Where I've been there, you go for it and you go for a few dates, and then you're like, oh, I don't really like them. And then the other person could end up liking you more. So you have to be really clear on what your intentions are. So let's get to the proper nitty gritty and the dating stories. Okay, so I'm going to cross my legs for this, because this is where the juice happens. Okay. So where it all started for me with dating was, it would have been last year. It was the start of last year, and I went solo traveling. I was single, I'd say about 6 months, and I was ready to date. I went traveling to Bali, Sri Lanka. I was over there for 3 months, and I thought it was the perfect time to start putting myself out there. Especially, I wasn't in Ireland. I was in that bubble of traveling, of being free, of rediscovering myself. And I never share things like this on socials. That's why we're here. So I'll tell you a story now. I met a guy and matched with him on Bumble. That would be a dating app that I would have used. And matched with him and got chatting. That day I met him and we had a coffee at the beach. It was just really casual. I really felt that I was laid bare. Like, I had no makeup on. I just had like a beach dress. I was in my sliders. And that was my raw self. When you think about it, I didn't have to have like my makeup, my hair done, a fancy outfit. I really felt confident within myself to a point, but I knew I had to grow on that as well. So by meeting him at the beach with no makeup, having to get in a swimsuit, that was nearly like a challenge for myself, because I'd never done that before. Do you understand? So I met him, and I remember saying to him, I'll have an iced coffee. He was French. And he was like, what? An iced coffee? I was like, yeah. And he started to slag me, and I said, oh, fuck off, like that. And he just started breaking a shite laughing. And I was like, what are you laughing at? He was like, I just think you're hilarious. This was about 10 minutes in. Anyways, went to the beach, excuse my French, went to the beach, and we had a lovely day, chilled out, sunbathing. And that night he was like, I'd love to see it again. So he couldn't find the keys to his motorbike. I was like, oh my God. I went back to my homestay where I was staying. And he was like, I really want to meet you, but I have to try find these keys of the motorbike. So he had to get a tuk-tuk back, he did, to get the spare keys, then came back to get the motorbike. And then he drove back to his hostel and then drove back again. So this was a 2-hour trip. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to go ahead. Oh no, he actually came back. He was like, I'm so sorry. I really want to see it. Like, I have this restaurant booked. And I was like, oh my God, nice. Real casual. It wasn't like too bougie or anything like that. Met him and got along really well. Then after that, he walked me back to my homestay hotel and had a little kiss, and that was that. And then he messaged me when he got home and was like, I had such a lovely time with you. I had no real plans to travel. I was really ad hoc where I was traveling at that point. Like, I had a few days to myself because I was traveling to Bali then. And he was like, I'd like to spend a few days with you. And I was like, okay, right. Now, being honest, girls, I don't know what it was. I only told my mom this, so this is confidential. Like, I have never spoke about this. To my friends, no, but to you guys, no. So I was like, okay, I just had to go with it. Honestly, I know he could have been a serial killer in the jungle, but I am that person the power of possibilities and just going with it. He seemed like a really nice guy. I got good energy, good vibes, and I would be a really good judge of character. So I went with it, okay? So anyways, he was like, booked a place, and it was just off, say like the main road. And he said, I'll meet you there at 2 or 3 o'clock. It came, I rocked up, I had my luggage, and it was about 1:15, 1:20. I was like, oh my God, he's after standing me up. And then my nerves were gone, the self-sabotage, the fight or flight, I'm not good enough, here we go again, all those things coming into my brain. But then I was like, no, just sit with it, give him the benefit of the doubt. There he is on the motorbike, rocks up. I was like, oh my God. So then anyways, we had to get to know each other. We went out on dates, and then we went to the beach. He had a motorbike. We travelled around. Like, I think I stayed for him for 4 or 5 nights. We had a beautiful time together. He was so relaxed, a lovely, lovely man. And then I ended up going to Bali. I stayed in contact with him a bit, but I knew it was just a holiday romance, do you know? And it was so nice at the time to like just meet someone. He was so chill, he was so nice. But how I even learned for myself, because I'd never done anything like that before. My nerves were gone, but I felt empowered to even get to know someone, to give a little bit of faith, a little bit of trust in someone, not put pressure on things, and just to really allow the moment for what it was and what it is, instead of being like, what are we going to do when I go home? Am I going to see you? How's this going to go? I really learned to be present with a person, especially from myself learning about mindfulness, as I am a mindfulness teacher as well. I really learned to be in the now, because I am an overthinker. I'm not going to lie to you. I am, a self-sabotager. But the tools I had learned about mindfulness and even just learning to be in the moment really gave me something to think about as well, being present a lot more in relationships, because as you know, I'm a content creator as well. I'm on Instagram, but when I'm with the person, whether you're a friend, a partner, my mom, I will give you my full attention. Like, my phone doesn't come out, I'm not scrolling on it, because I think we're in a generation where we need to really embrace that right now. So I did learn a lot from that as well. But then, okay, so fast forward, then I came back from traveling. I went on 1 or 2 other dates when I was abroad, just like meeting a guy, having a drink, more like of a friend. And it was amazing. It was actually giving me that confidence to put myself out there and feel comfortable before I came home, because it would have felt too daunting when I was at home in Dublin. So fast forward then, let's go to the summer last year. So I met this guy then on Bumble. I wouldn't be a person also to go out on a Saturday night, so that's why I was using dating apps and I was trialing them, because I'd never really used them before. So met this guy and went on a few dates. He seemed nice, but then I ended up saying to him, listen, I don't want anything serious. I think I'm not sure if you want a relationship, but I'm not really at that place right now. So I was very open and honest. And then he still wanted to see me, but I was like, listen, I'd be happy to be friends. I was being honest and clear, because I was only single about a year anyways, and I just wanted to get to know myself. So then a few weeks later, he comes back into the picture and he remembered my birthday, and I was like, okay, that seems really nice. And he was like, oh, I'd like to meet up to you again. And I said, do you remember the conversation we had? And he was like, okay, yeah. So I met up and I was like, want to be friends, blah, blah, blah. And then ended up dating him again. Okay, this is where it gets nitty gritty. So I was already after telling him I wanted nothing, and then it was friends, and then we started to date again. This would have been last July. So then a few months pass and I was like, oh, I kind of like him. I wasn't getting feelings in a love way, but I was starting to like him. And there was no conversation at all about, where's this going? I like you. There was no emotional availability there, but we had nice dates. I would have stayed over in his house. I was with him for a few months. We were just going with it, but there was that level of anxiety in me that kind of knew there's no clear communication here. So from that then, I had to lead the conversation. And we went out on a date and I said, oh, so like, what is it that you want? We've never really discussed this. And he was like, oh, well, I'm enjoying getting to know you, and I like hanging out with you. But I was like, that's not really clear. Like, what's the intention? So I just went with it. And I said to myself, okay, so we've been seeing each other for a few months now. Like, so how do you feel about it? Do you want to give it a label? And I felt a bit awkward asking that question because I knew he just wasn't clear. So then I remember he said to me, so what would that make you? And I was like, your girlfriend? And he said, what would that make me? I said, my boyfriend. Okay, so that means I said, in a relationship. And then that was that. And I thought it was so strange because he didn't lead, he didn't talk about it, he wasn't clear. And yet again, I'm back to reading between the lines. I was like, what is going on here? So that would have been, I think, around October. He went away for a few weeks and I just was kind of spiraling, I'm not going to lie, because I was like, I'm not really clear here. I went to my therapist, I was seeing a therapist at the time, and I just brought it in. I was like, what do you make of this? And he said, Emma, he's actually stonewalling you. So what stonewalling means is they're not really talking about the point they need to talk about. They're just bringing it back to you all the time so they don't have to reflect on their feelings. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Because everyone's allowed to feel how they want to feel. I'm not going to pry with people and get things out of them. And this is what I've learned from this situationship nearly. So I allow him to be himself. And then I sent him a message when he was away. I was like, listen, I don't think this is working out for us. I've been clear with what I wanted. I know it changed from the start. And then he rang me and was like, oh no, I really want to give it a shot. And I was like, okay, we can give it a shot. After that, he came home. And then there was a few weeks, I just said to myself, this isn't really working. There still was no clarity. There was no reassurance. He didn't bring up the conversation again. And that's okay. Like, people are allowed to be like that, but it's not within what I want or what I wanted at the time. So from that then, it was around Christmas time Christmas time. And I just knew it wasn't it for me. So I wanted to chat to him the weekend. He was out with his friends. And also one thing I found really strange was, if you're talking to someone or you're dating someone or you're wanting to build someone, I do think they should communicate with you throughout the day, or even let you know, hey, I'm actually busy today. I'm in meetings all day, but I'll catch up with you at 5 o'clock. Is that okay? Because we're not all available all the time. I totally understand that. But he would go like 24 hours without talking to me, or I would kind of give him the peace and wait on him to contact me. And he used to go mad over that. So I was like, this is really weird, the way you can go like 24, 36 hours without talking to me. And even when he was abroad, he went 4 days without talking to me. And I just thought that was so strange for a person I've been dating for 4 months, seeing the weekends, and you're not going to talk to me. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, that is not normal to me. Like, personally, that is not normal. So anyways, when I spoke to him, and I was chatting to him on the Friday, he was like, oh, I'm busy, I'm with the lads. And I was like, cool, enjoy your night. Then the Saturday came, I was like, listen, I think we need to talk. And he was like, fine, okay. He knew my tone of voice and didn't say, do you want to catch up today? That's okay, people are busy. It comes Sunday. So I said, do you want to meet me in a cafe, just a common ground, we can have a cup of coffee? And he said 2 o'clock is fine. Then he texts me, oh, that's really far away. Can we meet at 3 o'clock? I'm hungover. That was already, like, excuse my French, ripping the piss. I sent him a message. I was like, listen, you're actually like disrespecting like my time. I said 2 o'clock and now it's 2:30 and you want 3, you want 4. So I was nice about it and I said, listen, I'll meet you there. Anyways, met him. I walked in. I was being cool, calm and collected. Start off on a positive note. I said to him, how was your weekend? Did you have a nice time? And then this is where we get to it. I said, what exactly is it that you want here? Oh, well, I like how things are going. And it's fine between the two of us. No clarity yet again. So I took it amongst myself. I was already after having my little moment of madness, say a week or two before, to mentally prepare me for this. And I was going in, no emotion, because I knew what I wanted. And I said, listen, I'm quite clear on what I want, and I don't think you're at that place right now, but I don't want things to be unamicable between us. It was really nice getting to hang out with you, but I'm willing to walk away. And he said to me, well, right now I'm not willing to right now I'm not emotionally available. And I'm not willing to open up for a relationship. So I was like, whoa, okay. And that's when I said I'm willing to walk away. So I was being nice and he was looking at me because I didn't crack a tear, I didn't flinch, and he was like, what is going on here? So I was calm and collected from it. I was after composing myself, I was after regulating myself, I was sure of my decision. Anyways, I was walking out the door, he's like, oh, what are you up to now? And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go off I had something to do. Oh, you got to come back to mine. I was like, did you not just hear the whole conversation I had? I was like, we're done. Like this is over. Anyways, so I went off. The next day I get a text message. Spoke about this on another podcast before. And it was, whoa, babe, didn't know it was that easy for you to walk away. As you know, I don't like threats or promises. Let me know when you'll get your stuff. I was flabbergasted by this. First of all, he wouldn't have been a threatening person. He was a nice guy. Like, that's the thing. I was like, where is this coming from? It seemed a bit controlling as well. It's like, how can I respond to this? How can I show up, unbothered and just be civil and be amicable? So I just text back saying, I'll let you know when I get my stuff. So that was that. And after that then, I went over a week or two later, got my stuff. He apologized of how he showed up. And I was like, fair enough. But I said, I can't do this, it's not casual. I don't know what it is. And as well, it's just not it. I just knew. But from those 6 months, or say 5 months, okay, I actually learned so much about myself, especially now, especially from even dating and what I would have, I'm not going to say, well, I am going to say it, tolerated, but this is both from a man and a women's perspective. Like what you allow people or how you allow people to treat you, like 4 days without a text message or 24 hours. I understand people can be busy, but communicate. It takes 10 seconds to send a text message or call someone or just leaving you hanging like that. I had to learn how to protect my own self, protect my boundaries, give myself that self-love, that self-trust, validate myself, regulate myself. I was coming from a place of anxiety. And I remember my friend Gary, he said, Emma, you're reading between the lines so much now. And you shouldn't have to do that when you meet the right person, or you'll feel that in your gut and you'll know where you stand because they want to communicate with you. They want to be honest, be clear. And we're in a generation of now, especially when it comes to dating apps, that most of us don't want to be clear. From the get-go, we just we have a few dates and then we go with the flow. And then the flow turns into 2 or 3 months. And then we expect maybe the man to say, oh, will it be my girlfriend? But you've never discussed what you want. What is it that you value in a relationship? Do you want kids? Now, I'm not talking about on the first date, girls, where we're going in gung-ho. Because I actually ran a singles night in January. And I remember one of the girls talking to me about how she was going on dates. And I saw, what do you talk about? I was just really curious to know, how the dating world is, especially with women. And she said, oh, no, I'd lay it on the table, be like, I want kids, I want family, I want this. That's all well and good. But I think the first date is too much. The first date, you're literally saying hello and you're getting to know them. It's a stranger. The second date, third date, you're getting to see is their chemistry with that person. And then so on, you can start talking about those things. And that's how I really started to relax in the dating world. I didn't feel that I had to have a checklist and a plan and he needs to look like this and do this. I've dated so many different types of men, coming from different nationalities, working in different areas. I wouldn't even say I have a type, that's being honest. I think once you know who you are, you're secure, you're confident, and you have your own life and your own aspirations, dreams, goals, I think that's so attractive within itself. That's more than an aesthetic. Where before, years ago, mere girls, we would have been like, oh, he needs to, look like a Viking or look like Tom Hardy, But when you get a little bit more assured with who you are, I do think dating is a really good tool to navigate and use because you need to learn about yourself, girls. Then I'm going to actually go into the dating apps because dating apps, they are a blessing or they are a curse, okay? And when I start going into the app world, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many of them. There's Bumble, there's Tinder, there's Hinge, I don't even know any of the other dating apps, to be honest, but how I ranked them, okay? Tinder, whoa, let's not even go there. I felt Tinder was like, a booty call kind of vibe. And people on there, I was like, it felt like their photos were from 1959 or just people holding fish. I was like, not that I'm judging you holding fish, but I just was like, no. And then a lot of people thought I was a catfish because of my photos. Now, I wouldn't have had mega glam. Like there'd be ones with me with like no makeup. I'm out hiking, like my real self. And I don't want to sound up my own arse as well. Then Hinge, I feel like that's a CV. You have to fill in so many prompts, so many voice notes, so many photos, everything. I'm actually telling you all about me to get through to the next round before I even go on a date with you. I'm like, I remember one time, I think I gave it about a week on Hinge and I was like, I'm after spending about 2 hours on this profile. I was just like, I can't refine it to one if you're going to use the dating apps. And that's why I found Bumble really good, because not only did the woman make the move, which is nice, being like, hey, how's things? How are you? You could navigate the conversation, even though you could give prompts and they could write back to you first. But it was fun because in this world as well, I do think it is nice for a woman to approach a man. It is even nicer if a man does approach a woman, but we are in the modern world where it's okay to walk up to a guy, give him your number, say hello, smile. Like, how are they going to know you like them? So it is nice to make the move as a woman and give a compliment to a man as well. But it's very important with the dating apps not to overload yourself and get fatigue, because you can get addicted to them. You can be on every single night. You can be swiping, you can be texting, and you've lost hours of your week. Nearly schedule out a little hour for yourself, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday, have a little swipe, have fun with it, and then log off, because you are going to burn yourself out, I tell you. Like I kind of did at the start because it was like a novelty, because I never had it before. But then you need to dip in and dip out. That's what I call it. Every few weeks, dip in for a day, dip out and see what it's like, because otherwise you will burn the candle at both ends, and then you're going back to this state of wanting to be validated by an external source, talking to someone as well. And I had that as well. I was talking to a guy for, I'd say, 2 weeks, and he wanted to set up a date and then he had to reschedule for work. And I was like, okay, benefit of the doubt. People are busy. And then it happened again, but he just wanted to call me. And then I noticed, hang on, like I'm not just being available for a stranger, just to talk to and be a pen pal. Like that's not right. You're either going to meet up and have a date so we can actually get to know each other in person instead of just calling me. So I've learned so much through all these parts. And then even getting to the story. Oh my God, yes, do I have it here? Getting stood up. Okay, so we've unpacked so far a situationship, solo traveling, getting back out dating, and then being a pen pal. And now we're moving on to being stood up. So this story, I remember, matched with a guy. He was texting brief back and forth, but I actually knew in my gut before this day happened, I was like, I get a weird feeling about this. Okay. So anyways, I got ready. He was a bit flaky texting because he was in work. That's fine. But he was still communicating with me. And I met him in a bar in Camden Street. Well, I was waiting in the bar in Camden Street. And he sent me a message being like, oh, I'm caught up at work here. I'm on the way. So I said, okay, cool. I'm just waiting here at the moment. And then he sent me another message about 10 minutes later saying, oh, I'm just about to jump in a taxi. Are you still there? But he already said he was on his way. So immediately I just said, here, listen, I'm actually leaving it. I'm in my car now. And I said, I'm not going to have someone waste my time. And when I got back into my car, he unmatched and deleted me straight away, which I thought was so disgraceful. How someone could do that to someone, to show someone up, to not even communicate someone's time. I actually felt so shit. And I started to think, like, you do have those thoughts. Is there something wrong with me? Why would someone do that? But that's a reflection of themselves. They're that type of person that they're going to do that to someone else. It's not a reflection of you. You got ready. You went to the day. You showed up as yourself. That's enough, okay? But what did I learn from it? To trust my gut. I already knew before that date there was something off, and I still went in. So I ignored that. And a lot of us do. And even in a previous relationship I was in for 9 years, I started to feel that kind of 7-year itch. Around the 7-year mark, I was moving into a house with him and there was something not sitting right with me. I was like, am I supposed to feel like this? Am I supposed to feel a little bit uncertain, a bit nervous? Is this normal? And I thought those feelings were normal because I was making a big move. Like I was buying a house with him. We were moving in together. Of course I was going to feel nervous. So I let those feelings override of feeling a little bit unhappy. I just thought it was nervousness. It was fear moving in. I didn't listen to those undercurrents. So then when it came to it, when I was with him a few years later, we owned the house. I was trying for a baby and I found out he was cheating on me. And that actually broke me, but it made me at the same time. This was 5 years ago, so I'm totally healed from it now and I can talk so comfortably about it. But I learned so much from myself from that cheating saga as well. And especially being like having to not only like grieve a relationship, grieve like having a baby with the person and the house that I actually built because it was a shell. We put so much money into that at the time. But you can see already all the parts that I have been through that I'm unpacking, because this episode was so important for me to put out here to share the insight of how I am today in myself, because either relationships make you or they break you. And they definitely made me, from the dating world, the relationship world, how I navigated myself through. I'm going to talk to you again about it, is like the situationships, the ghosting, the gaslighting, even like I've had emotional or like verbal abuse years ago as well. Stonewalling. Like there's so much that I have been through, and a lot of you have been through as well. But I wanted to put it all in a one-stop shop so you know exactly what I've been through, how I've navigated it, the dating stories as well. There's a lot more to uncover. But another thing that I really realized was be clear on your intentions. So when I was going out dating, I wasn't clear on my intentions, but neither were the guys. You're just going out, you're having fun, you're having a drink, you're going for a walk, coffee. That's okay until you're dating them for a few weeks. That's when you can start being clear on your intentions and you're actually getting to know someone. And I seen something on social media which I thought was really good. Dating is like collecting data. You're just collecting data of that person. They don't have to fit into your life. You're trying to see how I could fit into their life. But it goes both ways, men and women, or any sort of relationship. So you're seeing, okay, how do they show up? How do they like their friends? How do they treat their friends? How do they treat their family? You know, how are they talking to the waiter? Are they saying, do they have manners? Like all these little things that mean so much to us, because we don't want to be with a rude person who's clicking fingers at someone in a restaurant. I remember that happened and I nearly had a stroke. I was like, what? Because that shows them what type of person they're going to show up as. So really be clear on your intentions, but you'll know it from when you're collecting that data, dating a person at the same time. A big factor which got in on my head so much was social media expectations. I was scrolling on TikTok being like, a man needs to show up as this. And when you're dating, you need to do this. 5 tips to do this. I wanted to whack my head off that wall because I was taking in so much information that I was on overload of how I was supposed to show up, but I wasn't showing up as myself. So I actually stopped listening to all of these videos on how to date, what a man should do, what I should do, and started doing what I wanted to do, what I believed was right, what was in line with myself, my values, my needs, you know, what I really liked in myself and how I wanted to show up. So I stopped watching that because it was polluting my mind. I just think that is a big thing, is limit your social media when you're dating and the videos you're watching, because it's going to mess up your head as well. Then the situationship culture, which I was talking about, has gone outrageous, especially me. A lot of people, my friends, would have been like, I would have never put you to be in line with like that situationship, because a situationship, what it actually means is when there's no clarity or clear emotions expressed towards each other or what exactly you want. Okay. So if both parties aren't doing that, it is a situationship because you're just in a situation together. You like each other's company, but you're not talking about it. You're not being clear. You're not giving emotional availability. You're not expressing yourself. So therefore, it is a situation. And why did I put up with it? I think because I like the guy and it was a learning curve for me. But we're in this phenomenon that we're waiting on another person to be the driver in the relationship. But you can be the driver. This is what I learned. I can have those conversations and say, instead of waiting on the guy to do it, be like, hey, I was thinking, we're dating each other for, 2-3 months. Where do you see this going? You're allowed to have those conversations. Stop waiting on the other person to be the driver because you're the driver of your own life. No one else is. And then moving on to the pressure and the timelines. So a lot of us have timelines in our head. Like I'm 39. And of course I have a timeline and I've actually came to the point where I actually do want children. I toyed with this idea for years because I had a lot of wounds around the past. And I came to terms with, am I supposed to have a child? I don't know. It didn't happen with my long-term ex, but I wasn't trying for that long and it was a blessing in disguise because it just didn't work out for a reason. And then my last relationship, it ended up that he didn't want children and that's okay. You're allowed. Say how you feel, you're allowed to say what you want. But I came to a place then going, is this for me? Do I see myself with a child? How is that going to show up? What's my timeline like, especially as 39? Do I want to do it on my own? Do I want to just have a donor? Like I started to ask myself all these questions, even down to freezing my eggs. So the last 2 years of being single, I definitely started to ask myself all these questions without having a partner there. So then I really knew exactly what I wanted instead of having someone coming in to really deflect or reflect, should I say, what I wanted. They weren't making it up for me. I was making my own mind up. So I remember when my sister got pregnant and I was so happy for her, over the moon, like absolutely chuffed. This was 3 years ago. I got really emotional about it. And at the time I was in therapy talking to my therapist. And I don't know why I got so upset. And she was like, Emma, it's because this is what you really want. And I said, really? Actually, no, it wasn't my therapist. I was getting Reiki done off a gorgeous woman. And I said, really? She says, yeah, that emotion is coming up because it's a longing for what you want. And then even saying that out loud, I'd never said it out loud because I dealt with a few years of keeping it inside and coming to terms with this is not what I'm supposed to have, but I wasn't really going down to the root of this is what I really want. There's a difference between the two of them. So when I started to own my truth and started thinking about, okay, I do want a child because I'm getting upset about it. And then a year later, I started speaking out saying, I actually want children. That used to give me a feeling in my gut being like, why do I feel like that? I felt really nervous. I felt really unsure. And I think the reason why I didn't say it out loud was because if it doesn't happen, then I don't have to take it back because people don't know. And that was how I navigated my own self through relationships, through what I wanted. I would have been a bit like that when I was with my long-term ex as well. And there was a lot of good things there, that's it. But the last few years, I realised how I showed up in those relationships. Fair enough, yeah, if I got cheated on, but how did I show up? How did I learn from that? Was I being, present in that relationship? Was I giving him what he needed? Or could we communicate together? So I really started to reflect the last few years, how I started to show up and what was kind of a reoccurring theme within the relationships I was in. So between that then, from journaling, I journal most days as well and reflect and how I am as a person, how I want to change. It's not just a dear diary I create. I really hone in on what I've learned about myself, how I'm showing up, my behaviors, my patterns. I'm like my own therapist, girls. I'm not going to lie, but it's so, so good. From that, then I started to own my truth about how I was showing up in relationships and how I did want a child. So starting to come to terms with that, it was hard. Like I said, it gave me a pit in my stomach and I didn't know how to navigate that. But the one thing that I learned was sitting in the uncomfortable. It's really hard to sit in that uncomfortable feeling, but it's learning to be comfortable with it. owning your truth, saying it out loud. And the more you say it out loud, the more it feels okay. The more it absorbs, the more it sinks in. And that's what I started to do. So I came to a place of all these realizations, okay? And I started to realize what I wanted. I wanted a child. I wanted to be secure. I wanted to be my best self in a relationship or when I was dating someone, because the cost of connection is effort. And what that means is when you're wanting to find a meaningful connection with someone, you have to put effort in, and so do they. It's like 50-50. You can't just constantly want from another person. That's how the connection is going to grow. And that's one thing that I learned, especially in this dating world as well. You know, I constantly have people asking me when I do my motivational Mondays, and questions even I asked myself, you know, am I too much? And I used to feel like that I was too much, but maybe they're not enough. And that is the thing about settling. There was years that I actually did settle, and I think that's being really vulnerable with you. And it's so important to know when you're settling, when things feel off. Like I stated a while ago about when I was 7 years in, I knew there was things that were off. You know, instead of just trucking along for what's next, you're supposed to be a team. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, but you're going to talk about it with each other. And it's so important to communicate, because at the end of the day, relationships are based on three things: intimacy, trust, and communication. Communication is talking to each other all the time, being open, being honest, being vulnerable. You know, the second one is trust. You have to trust each other, because that is what the main thing, the foundation is built on in a relationship, is trust. You have to be willing to allow that ebb and flow with each other. And then the last one is intimacy. And that's not behind closed doors or in the bedroom or holding space for each other. That is sitting down and listening to your partner intentionally, holding space for them, putting your phone away, giving them a hug, showing them affection. All these little things that grow throughout the day to hold that space for someone. That is what true intimacy is. And those three things are like the little triage, the little mecca. I found that what a relationship is. But I've learned to give that back to myself first before I was able to go into the broader scenario. And I'm going to touch on then what has changed. What has changed me? Okay. And I'm after writing these down. I've done the work, and I know it's really, really hard. Like I said at the start of the pod, I was going into wanting external validation. I was letting myself be stood up. I was giving my time and energy towards people. I'm going to hone in on the standards versus expectations. This was a big thing for me, because I had these unachievable standards in my head, right? Oh, they have to do this, they have to do that, they need to text this way, they have to show up that way. No, that is not right at all. I was making this list and this file of facts in my own head. I don't know why, going off previous experiences, making totally unachievable expectations. So you're setting yourself up for failure. And the difference between standards and expectations, I am going to get started on. Okay, standards are about you. They're about knowing non-negotiables. They are about protecting your energy. And that is respect. That is self-respect. It's how you want to be treated. Okay, it's about being emotionally available, letting someone in, understanding yourself. Oh, and then it's about leading with your actions. So they're your standards. You have to lead them with actions, not just with words. Then we go into expectations, which are about them. Okay, you're with me? It's their assumptions about you. You can't change those assumptions. You can only change the perspective of yourself. Okay? These then are going to lead to disappointment and miscommunication. That communication, you're expecting then that person to communicate with you. That's not up to you to a point. Stay with me. Then it comes on relying on potential expectations. When you expect someone to show up in a certain way for you in a relationship. and you're more or less falling in love or in lust with the version that you want them to be. I've had this before. You have this ideal relationship in your head and you're relying on that expectation, but that's not the real deal. You have to come back and you have to learn to accept them for what they are, who they are, not for what you're expecting them to be. And that is a big thing, especially I think in relationships, because if you're expecting someone to constantly show up in a way and you're not accepting them who they are right now, what is that going to lead to? Resentment. And I would have had a bit of this in my last relationship because I could see the person he was going to become and who he was. I did accept that. But when that wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, should I say, and then I was still healing from a previous relationship, I had to walk away because he was a great guy. I didn't want to resent him. So I took it amongst myself to say, listen, I know this isn't working. We've been like this for a few months. I think we need a little bit of space and time. And then we ended up breaking up, but we were both amicable about it. I didn't want to resent him as well. And I didn't want to have a level of expectation that he couldn't achieve or change or want for himself. It has to come in here. That person has to want to change for themselves. Do you see what I mean? So standards versus expectations. I started to lower my expectations in dating as well, because I'd have an ideal thing in my head. Oh my God, they need to book dinner. They need to do this. They need to do this. And then you're watching on TikTok. No, level it and lower it right down. You can go on a walk and a coffee. I did that. That's okay. But it's up to you to what your standards are. If your standards are bougie drinks and dinner, that's okay. But the dating pool is going to go much smaller for you. Because when you think about it, you're meeting up with a stranger for an hour of their time to go for a coffee and a walk. Perfect. No problem. See how you get along. It's relaxed. You owe them nothing. It's €3. You're going on a walk. But if you're going to meet a stranger or a guy you've been talking to or a girl you've been talking to, you're going to dinner, you're going to drinks, you're getting dressed up, you're going for time. You have to sit with that person for 3 or 4 hours and you might not even have a connection. So kind of reframe your mindset around it. It's just a coffee and a walk, and then your expectations get a lot lower. So when they learn a little bit more about you and they start to know what you like, it's just so much more relaxed then. You're able to see where your standards are at and then what your expectations are. They lower down and you learn a lot about yourself as well. I definitely learned a lot about myself because I would have had myself kind of a little bit up here. You're expecting someone to change and you're expecting someone also to be a mind reader. Yeah, sometimes I actually thought men were supposed to be mind readers, but they're not. We have to communicate. We can't expect them to know everything, and vice versa. Women to men, we're not mind readers either. But it is all about communication, I think, is huge. Because if the other person doesn't know your needs, how are they going to know what you need and open up about you a little bit more? How are they going to know that? So the main takings are learning to trust your gut, okay? Leaning into your intuition. I'm tongue teasing here. Boundaries around time, emotional availability and communication. And then why consistency is actually way more than chemistry. I'll say that again. Consistency is more than chemistry. And why is that? You can have amazing chemistry with someone and be like, oh my God, I want to rip their clothes off. Or there's such a vibe. I have the butterflies. Oh yeah. But if they don't show up for you, communicating, being open, being honest, going on a date every single week, whatever it is, you're attracted to the butterflies, the fight or flight, the anxiety. That's actually not real. And I've had that before. And a lot of people think that dating or love is supposed to be butterflies and oh my God, it's actually not. And I've realized that now, especially I'm in a new relationship now. And when I started to date him, it really was so calm. I did like him straight away. I was like, he's so intriguing. He's really smart. He's intelligent. His energy was so calm. I was like, oh my God, like I actually felt so relaxed. And I was like, ooh, this is different, but it was good. But then what comes into our brains, we start to self-sabotage. We start to, what's going on here? I don't know what that is, because it was something different. And even talking about that now it's learning to feel all different sorts of emotions, or different types of emotions. We have to feel all the feels. Oh, I'm anxious, but I'm excited. I'm fearful, but I'm empowered. Like, you're allowed to feel all these different types of things. What did I call it before? I don't know. It was literally like riding the waves of like an ocean out there. You're surfing because you were up, you were down, you were like, your stomach was doing somersaults. You didn't want to go, but you wanted to go. You wanted to show up for yourself and learn, but you wanted to sit at home. I was constantly having scraps with myself, but it was really exciting. And then moving on to being single without not feeling left behind. So when I was 2 years single, there actually wasn't a time I felt behind. That's being honest, because I never had that time to myself. I do know there's a lot of us out there who are in our 30s, our late 30s, and you do feel you're being left behind because your friends are getting married, your friends have children, you feel it's not going to happen for you. But let's reframe that, okay? When I have coaching clients as well, I always say to them, if you were to change your environment, okay, how would you show up and what thoughts would you have? So if you're around people who are gorgeous people, your friends have babies, they have children, they're married, you want that automatically. So if you were to take yourself out of that environment, maybe with new friends, new hobbies, new exciting things to do, they're single, how would you think your mind would change? Would you yes, you would probably still want that, but ask yourself, would those thoughts just cool off a little? And you'd want to maybe have fun a little bit more, meet new people, try new hobbies. Your mind wouldn't be so as pressured as you are right now because you're constantly in that environment. When you change your environment, that's where you start to explore, you start to grow. And that's what I did in dating as well. I changed my environment. All my friends were in relationships. I was the only single one. So I had to change my environment. I was either going to sit in my house 24/7 or just go out to the gym, do what I was doing, go to work, or I had to mix it up myself. So that's why I would have went on dating apps, or if I got talking to a guy, I had to change my own environment and change how I was showing up in the dating world and what I wanted instead of sitting at home. I wasn't going to find anybody sitting at home. And then it's deconstructing the timeline of the myth of you have to have everything by a certain age. Like I said, I'm 39. I don't own my own house. I'm only in a new relationship a few months. I don't have children. I'm not married. But I feel okay about that. I feel okay about that because I more or less had all that years ago. And I more or less planned my whole life years ago. Tick the house, tick the job, tick about to have a baby, tick, tick, tick. But was I happy? No, I wasn't. Am I happy now? Yes. But was I happy before I even met my boyfriend now? 100%. Am I winging life? Totally. Haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I know I'm here talking to you, but I am winging life. I don't know what's next. Yes, I have this podcast. Yes, I want a baby. Yes, I probably want to move in with my boyfriend, but they're all conversations I have had, but they'll come up again. I'm not being like, this needs to be a timeline. I need to have this and I need to move. You can have a rough timeline. That's okay, but it will change all the time. Allow yourself to go up and down and kind of have fun with your timeline. It can be 6 months. It can be a year. Hang on. I actually want to go traveling. Hang on. I actually don't want to date at all. Hang on. Do I need a break? Or, do I need to have fun more? Play with your timeline as well. Another one is it's decentering relationships from self-worth. So when I was in relationships, it's really important to reframe relationships that you're in, whether that's friendships, whether that's relationships, whether that is anything got to do with a partnership. It is learning to decenter your worth. Your worth is not based around how that person shows up for you. You have to really understand that it's how you show up for you and how you allow others to treat you and what you tolerate. It's so important. And then it's really building a full life of yourself before you meet that person. Being single without feeling left behind, have fun with it. Go out, explore, go to new hobbies, do things on your own. I tell you, the last few years between solo traveling, between I go off hiking by myself on a Sunday, people think I'm absolutely crazy. I have to pinpoint my mum and tell her where I am in the mountains because she will have a conniption. Like even I'd have some of my Instagram followers being like, "You're going hiking on your own." I'm like, yeah, I love being by myself now. What else do I do? I'd bring myself for lunch, a spa weekend. I go for wine. And I remember I was on one of my mindfulness hikes. I've one on in January as well. I'll give a plug for that, my website as well. I lost my train of thought. Where am I going with this? Yes. Okay. One of my followers, she came on the hike with me and we were chatting away about self-love. We were having the chats. We were having the crack. And she was like, "Do you know what I said to my friend?" She was like, "I love the way you love yourself." And I said, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, like I just really love the way you love yourself." She's like, "I don't mean that in like a vain way. I don't mean that in like a stuck up way." And I says, no, I totally understand where you're coming from. Like, thanks so much. And that was one of the best compliments I've ever received, because I have really learned over the last few years how to like love myself. And not only has that been so rewarding to myself, like I treat myself like really well, but not as in like external things like clothes and gifts or whatever, but I treat myself in here. What I allow others how to treat me, my boundary, my times, like we were talking about it. But then that's created a baseline for me for when my new boyfriend came in. I sound like I'm actually like a woman that's after being married about 50 times with all the fellas I've had. I haven't locked them in, gals. But I am 39 when you think about it. But the baseline for me now is I know how much I love myself. So it creates a baseline for when he's after coming in, he sees how much I love me. And that alone, like he loves that even more because I'm teaching him how to love me because I already love myself to that point. And how I treat myself, how I, what I put up with or what I accept, not in a confrontational way. Do you get me? Because we don't like fight like that, but just in general, what you're putting up with as well, like protecting your boundaries. "Oh, listen, I'm not free this time. I'm on a podcast now. I'll talk to you later." Like that's okay. But it's treating yourself with that utmost respect and that love creates that baseline for when someone else comes in. So then, right. I feel like I'm just unpacking so much in this podcast. I wrote like 6 pages of a script for you because I wanted to unpack so much. Finishing off with loneliness versus solitude. The difference between alone and loneliness are 2 different things. It's learning to be alone. Then single can actually be your season of clarity. You're getting clarity on yourself. Okay. Then finally, we are coming near to the end is the mindset shifts that are going to change everything. Okay. Dating, like I said, it's information gathering. It's okay. You're gathering data. You're allowed to do that. Then moving on to number 2, you're not too much for the right person because you're not. Maybe they're not enough, girls. And guys, I don't like to single these out. You don't need an audition to be chosen. Do you ever notice if you were talking to someone, you feel like you need to perform? No, you don't need to perform. You just have to be yourself. And that's something I learned over, I'd say, especially this last year of being myself or dating. I just don't audition anymore. Like I'm done. I'm just going to show up. "Hi, how's things?" Just be myself, because what do I need to audition for? Just be yourself. It's draining when you constantly have to do it. I'm going to tell you that now. Choosing yourself doesn't mean closing yourself off. So when you choose yourself, you don't have to close the doors. So that was like me. I didn't close myself off, even though I've been through a lot of heartbreak, breakups, a lot of things through relationships. I never closed myself off. I did think that I was going to have a single life like Paddy and Selma in The Simpsons, just own a few cats and live in an apartment. Like I was kind of coming to terms with that, girls. I was like, this would be the quiet life. But no, you don't have to close yourself off. You have to have a little creak in the door. See how much your door is open. Okay. And then the last one is being open and protective at the same time. You're allowed to be open, but protect yourself. It's boundaries. We don't want to have a little house on a hill and then there's loads of room for everyone to run around the house. No, we want to have a nice picket fence around the house. There might be a little code on the gate, but that's okay. You're allowing who you want in and out. But we don't want the house in the hill where they have 10-foot walls and they're trying to jump over either. So kind of there's a little visual for you. Which house on a hill are you at the moment, and which one do you want to be, and how could you get there? So just wrapping it up and trying to summarize everything all in one. I thought this podcast was going to be about a half an hour, but I don't even know where we're at right now. I have never spoke as much about one topic as I have, because I had so much to unpack and say to you, between covering my dating stories, mindset shifts, the difference between standards and expectations. It's just understanding that dating, it is personal, messy, but it is just about being a human at the same time. You're allowed to have fun with it and get to know someone else, whether you're going to form a connection, you're going to have chemistry, or it's just going to be a new contact, a new friend. Second one is it's okay to take breaks. I reframed that at the start as well. Take breaks, have fun. You're allowed also change what you want. Your types in people are going to change all the time because you're changing all the time. You're going to know what you want, what you don't want. Maybe you want children like I did. Maybe actually I didn't want children like I did, should I say. But then I went back to going, no, I do. So it's really asking yourself those things all the time. And then moving to, you're not failing, you're just learning. A lot of people would message me being like, oh, and this day and this day. These are all just gathering data. You're learning about yourself. Stop putting the focus on the other person and start putting the focus on you. You're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, okay? And then a gentle reminder, which I have here. You're not late in life, okay? You're not alone. You're choosing to be alone and learning to love yourself before someone else comes along. And then the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. I am going to leave it at there. I hope you got some mega golden nuggets and juicy information, which I've never shared before, I tell you now, because I do feel this podcast and why it's called All of the Above is because I want to talk about everything. I want it to be a safe space for people to breathe, to talk, to connect, and especially me with you guys, because I love doing my solo episodes. These are my safe place to unpack things that I don't talk about online, to build a community, to let you know that you don't feel alone. And just really talk about all my learnings over the last 2 years. Can you believe it's been 2 years nearly since my podcast? What the hell? I thought it was 1 year. But just to summarize about this podcast as well, and what I took from it so you can walk away with things is learnings from the dating world. You're supposed to learn. Then rediscover yourself, okay? Know what your standards are and appreciate them. You are the author of your life. And it's, you're worthy of rewriting any story that you want. You're allowed to learn, grow, evolve, like I say, because the more you do this, you're going to get closer to the person you want to be in your life and the person you want in your life. Well, that has been me for my first episode for All of the Above. I hope you loved it and stay tuned for next week's episode.